I do believe there is a scam artist on every corner. Hey y'all, it is hot outside. It's like 91 degrees. I've been outside selling today and I'm sweating. My hair's all flat because it's hot and I'm sweating. And I'm sitting in the hottest room in the house. But I have a glass of ice water to help keep me cool, so I might need to take a splash of it. But I wanted to talk to you today about scam artists. But before I go into my little story about the scam artist, I wanted to give you some history on us. There's also one of these videos that my grandkids can maybe look back on one day and say, that's good to know about Grandma and Granddaddy. So that's one of those kind of videos. And I may have to take these glasses off because I'm sweating with them. Phew. Anyway, Randy was one of the most giving people I know. A lot of times the Lord would deal with him on helping somebody out with, a piece of money or something. And he was quicker to listen than I was. The Lord has to kind of beat me over the head to get me to do that. But I try to listen. I just don't hear it as much as Randy did. And he was out working, so he made the money. So he had a little bit more in his pocket than I would have had in my pocket. When I got money in my pocket, I usually held on to it because I let him spend. But anyway, and I know the Bible says don't let your right hand know what your left hand's doing, but I just wanted to share a few little stories with you so you kind of know how Randy was. Because he had taught the boys and myself, and I see it being passed down to my grandkids now, about giving. I remember him telling me one time he was coming home from work, and he said this guy was sitting out in his front yard in a wheelchair. He said, he waved and I waved and went on down the road. He said, the Lord spoke to me. He said, turn around and go give him the money you got in your bill folder. Randy was a little embarrassed because all he had in his bill folder was $10 at the time, but he was willing to give it. It's like the widow lady in the Bible. She gave 2 mites. That's all she had. But God accepted it more than what the rich people was giving because she gave all she had. And that was what Randy was doing. And he was giving all that he had at that time. And, sometimes it's an obedient thing. Maybe the man needed the money for something, maybe he didn't. But it was showing that Randy was obedient to God. And, it's little things like that has always stuck with me over time. Things that he would, I knew that he was giving. I'm sure there's times he gave that I didn't know about because he didn't tell me everything as far as sharing with others, but a lot he did tell me. And a lot of times if it was a big amount, he would talk to me about it because, there's a lot of difference in a couple $100 or a couple $1,000 versus $10 or $20 here or there. And I remember, I'll tell you this other one. We had made some little bags for the homeless, and it had some cookies and some peanuts and some water and candy, and then it had socks and deodorant and stuff like that in it. And we were going around and passing them out, and we come across this one. Now I don't know if he was right in his mind or not. He didn't talk a lot. He had raggedy old clothes on, and when Daniel got out the van, because we were in town, and he got out the van and he handed me the bag. The guy took it and went running around the corner. Well, we're looking for more homeless. And so we seen him when he come back. He was sitting on the steps. He was pulling everything out of that bag and just eating. You could tell he was hungry. And it touched us. And I said, Randy, can't we just go get him? McDonald's was right up the road. I said, can't we go to McDonald's and get him something? And Randy said, yeah. And so we went back and Daniel went and talked to him and asked him, said, would you like something to eat from McDonald's? And he said yes. And Daniel asked him, said, what would you like? He said, I'd like a hamburger. And so we went up and got him a Big Mac and got the apple pie and large tea and all that, and came back and gave it to him. He sat right there on that step waiting on us. And when Daniel handed it to him, he commenced to eat. And that really touched me because he was somebody in need. And you know, there's so many out there who are homeless, and I know there's some that has needs, but there's some out there just lazy and don't want to work. And we're the kind, if we go somewhere, a restaurant, and somebody walks up and says, "Could you buy me a meal? I'm hungry." We don't mind buying a meal. Randy, Daniel, Scott, and Andrew, myself, we'll go in the store. Leah, we'll go in the store and get what you want and pay for it. But it's not going to be cigarettes, and it's not going to be liquor, because we don't buy that stuff for ourselves, and we're not buying it for nobody else. And Randy's had people that asked him about that, and he would say, "No, I'm not buying that for you. I don't buy it for myself. I'm not buying it for you." And so, food is one thing. But there is those who have those little signs, "I'm homeless and I'm hungry." And we learned a lesson one time. We had seen the guy with the homeless sign, so we went to Walmart. We was going to Walmart's anyway. And so we bought some extra stuff, had it in a bag, came out and gave it to him, and realized he was puffing on a cigarette. Now, my thing is, and Randy's thing was, if they can buy cigarettes, they can save that money and buy food. And so that's just how we looked at things. So I'm going to switch over now and change the subject a little bit, and we'll talk about telephones. Randy and I got married in March. And from March to May, we didn't have a telephone. And which was no big deal. We hadn't missed it. It wasn't a big priority in our life. But in May, he'd been coming home anywhere from 5 to 7 o'clock at night, anywhere in that zone. And that time he was really late, and I was starting to get worried. So I had to drive 7 miles to Mama's, call his mama, and 7 miles back home. He was okay, thank the Lord. But it's a 30-mile drive, and I thought maybe something had happened to him. That was the worry ward in me, my mama coming out of me. So anyway, he was fine. He got home probably 8:30, 9 o'clock, and I said, "I've got to have a telephone." I said, "If something happens, I've got to be able to get in touch with somebody." And so from that point, we got a telephone. And for years, it was a residential. When we started our business in '91, we started advertising with our residential number. And of course, when the phone company finds out and you put their number in the yellow page, they put your number in the yellow pages, it becomes a commercial business and the phone bill goes up. So we've had the same number. I've had the same number for 36 years. So when we closed the business, I had a problem with giving up the phone number. But I've got the phone number, got my internet, everything's set up. And I talked to my middle son, and he said, "Well, he understood. Why don't you just keep it?" I said, "Well, I will." I said, "But it'll have to be a business number." He said, "Why?" I said, "Well, once you started as a business number, if you try to go back as a commercial, they're going to think that you're still using it as a business number, and so they won't let you go back." And he said, "Oh." So he agreed, and Lee and I agreed that we would keep it and use it as Shumpert's Hill Bakery. So the answer machine has been changed from Randy Shumpert's Well Drilling to Shumpert's Hill Bakery. But the Randy Shumpert's Well Drilling is still out there in space as our phone number. And so I get a lot of calls from people wanting repair work, wanting wells, wanting to talk to Randy. A lot of them, they're on the answer machine. I've got to the point I don't want to spend 30 minutes to an hour calling people back just to tell them we're out of business. So I've got where I just delete it. They can call somebody else. Every once in a while, if I'm close to the phone, I will answer it. So that's where we're at now. About our scam artist. So last night, I was at the computer, and the phone rang. And I decided, well, I'll just answer it. Now, lots of people knew Randy. They knew him by first name. Excuse me, just a second. Excuse me, got a frog in there. It's not even unusual to get a weird area code. So, I didn't think nothing about it. this guy called. He wanted to talk to Randy, and I said, Randy's not here. I said, he passed away. And he told me, he said, I'm sorry, I've been out of town and I didn't know he had passed away. He said, my condolences. I said, well, thank you. He gave me his name. He was a preacher. And he said, I'm a black preacher and I have a black church. He said, but I had a white woman coming to my church. Well, I'm out of town and she's on a dirt road. And he gave the road number. He said, she's off on a dirt road off that road. And she's out there with 2 kids. And somebody come by last night. She's stranded out there. And they come by and they knocked on the window and then they ran to the woods. And, you know, I'm listening to this and not really believing it. And, you know, you want to help people, but you've got to stay on your P's and Q's. And so I just listened. And let me just put it in there. I would be willing to help somebody, but I'm not going to put myself or my family in danger. Anyway, he kept talking. He said, I'm coming back in town tomorrow. I just want to get her some food out there for her and those kids. Could you take her some food? And I thought to myself, yeah, I could take her food. Daniel was going to go with me. I was going to have a little friend go with me to protect me. And I would have called Andrew. Scott would have been in the bed. So I'd have called Andrew and let him know what was going on. And I would probably asked if the church could pay for it since, you know, things have been a little tight for me. And, but he kept talking. You couldn't get a word in edgewise. I was trying to get him to explain things. And he said, now, if you're not going to help, let me know. And I needed more detail. And he kept talking. And then he said, she's out on this highway. And I said, well, where at? And he was trying to explain. And then he was called a business that was there. And I couldn't make out what he was saying. And I said, say that again. And he said, ma'am, I feel like you ain't trying to help me. I said, well, I didn't know what you said. And he kept on. And then all of a sudden it changed to, instead of taking her a meal, she had got kicked out of her house. And he had paid, the church, I guess, had paid $255. And he didn't have any more money in the fund. So he needed $182.50. And he said to pay it off. And he kept on. And he didn't ask for the money at that moment. He just kept asking for food. And I said, well, tell me where it's at. And finally he told me the road, the dirt road. And I wrote it down. And he kept on talking. And he said, then he brought up the $182.50 again. He said, they put all her stuff outside. And if I can get this $182.50 paid, she can get back in that house. He said, I said, you want me to pay that? He said, well, if you would pay it, me and my wife will meet you at a certain spot, and we'll pay you the money back. I said, listen, I said, you asked for food. You didn't ask for money, but now you're asking for money. That's different. I don't give money away. Not unless the Lord tells me to and I feel led to do it. And so he kept talking, and he told me where she was. And then he said, well, there's a man before then he told me she had moved to Connecticut, and now she was no longer going to his church, and she got messed up with a man. And then she was back down here. And then all of a sudden he says, well, if you go out there's a man. I said, a man? He said, yeah, it's her husband. I said, I thought she was a woman with 2 kids. I said, I tell you what, I said, I think I'm just going to decline this one. I said, and you have a good night. And I hung up the phone. So I talked to my friend Jane. She had gotten a call similar to that a couple of days ahead of that. And she didn't let it go as far as I did. Because I was willing to help somebody if they were in need. But like I said, there's got to be more investigation to know if there really is a need. And so she confirmed that it was a scam artist. Well, before I got in touch with her, Daniel and I were actually going to ride down there. I had my little friend with me, and Daniel was with me, and we were riding over there to see if there really was a car, because he had told me it was a burgundy Camry. And we got a little ways down the road, and I said, Daniel, what is your spirit telling you? He said, go home. I said, mine is too. Let's go home. We turned around and come back home. And then I talked to Jane, and she confirmed it. So I got aggravated, so I put it on Facebook. So I put his name and I put his number on Facebook. And this morning when I got up, a friend of mine told me that. She said, oh, he got you. She said, let me guess, it was a woman with 2 kids. I said, yes, it was. And he said he didn't get her, but he had called 2 other women. So what he was doing was going through our phone book and trying to get money from people. $182.50. So, it's awful that people will scam you like that, or try to scam you. He didn't get anything. He wasn't getting anything. It's just a waste of my time is what he did. And, I was brought up to respect the ministry, to respect a preacher. He had a high calling on his life. Now, I know some preachers that have abused that role. But when you got somebody coming in and saying they won, then that abuses it too. And so it's just a sad situation. I'd hate to be him when he's got to stand before the good Lord and give an account for his actions, because he will give an account for every action. The Bible tells us, and it's tough, y'all, it's really tough, but the Bible tells us we will give an account for every idle word that comes out of our mouth. That's a lot to think about. Lord help me. Y'all take care and God bless.